Joining me now is South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace, member of the House Oversight, Armed Services, and Veterans Affairs Committees. Congresswoman, it's good to see you. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I want to get to a lot of things with you, particularly this new ticket on the Democrat side. But first, you're on the Oversight Committee. What have you been doing in terms of trying to get to the bottom of this assassination attack on President Trump's life? It's pretty incredible that all of these weeks later, we still don't have much information about him, the shooter.
Yeah, that's right. And now Speaker Johnson has created a special task force that will continue that investigation. So it'll be handed over to the task force. Early on, of course, the Oversight Committee and Judiciary sent inquiries, requested briefings, and tried to hold hearings. Of course, we saw what happened to Kim Cheadle at the oversight hearing, and thankfully she resigned her post. And I hope that this administration will do a heck of a lot better than they did last time, because we need to protect President Trump and anyone on the presidential ticket running for president or vice president. There are a lot of threats now that we are learning, and I want to praise the undercover agents that came forward with information about the attempted plot by a Pakistani man with Iranian ties on President Trump. We're learning more through the media. We're not learning it through our investigations because the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and Secret Service have been close-hold and not been willing to share information with any of us so far in Congress.
Yeah, you were great on that hearing that day with the Secret Service head, Cheadle, in terms of holding her to account. But let's talk about holding the Democrats to account here with this new ticket. Kamala Harris's new VP pick is Tim Waltz, and they're in lockstep on the border. He signed a law last year granting driver's licenses to illegal migrants. He wants free health care for illegals, passed measures to make illegal migrants eligible for tuition-free college. He supports sanctuary city policies. Waltz's record on crime, while governor of Minnesota, also in focus. Violent crime in Minnesota up 30% under his leadership. The police force shrunk by nearly 40%, and nearly 50,000 people left the state between 2020 and 2022. Not to mention he was in charge during the 2020 riots over the death of George Floyd. Congressman, what does this ticket tell you about where Kamala Harris wants to bring America?
Well, it's shocking, really, how far left the Democrat Party has gone. This is the most woke, most progressive, most far-left ticket in American history. And, Maria, I've said this many times on your program. I represent a very purple district. 40% or more of my voters are independent. They're not affiliated with Republicans or Democrats. I'm going to rebrand Tim Waltz as Tampon Tim. Women's issues are very important in my district. They have been since overturning Roe v. Wade. And here's a guy that doesn't know the difference between men and women, that wants tampons in boys' restrooms, that wants kids to be able to cut off their body parts without their parents' permission, that doesn't keep our communities safe. It's unbelievable that this is where we are today, that this is the conversation we have to have. I would much rather be talking about the economy and how we're going to balance the budget and spending. But I got to go back to the basics here, because this is offensive. It's offensive as a woman, as a mother to a daughter, that this is what's going on. This is who they're putting on the ticket. And he's probably further left than Kamala. Both of them want to defund the police. They're okay with Black Lives Matter and Antifa, political violence across the country. They're okay with cities being burned down. And they do nothing to stop it. And as a mom and as a woman, I think it's the most offensive ticket to women in American history.
Well, we've talked about the economic policies with the among the highest taxes that we've seen in the union in Minnesota. But you mentioned the abortion thing. He passed one of the nation's most permissive abortion statutes that has essentially no limits and no age consideration for minors in that regard. And he declared Minnesota to be a, quote, trans refuge, with a law saying that the state will ignore a court order for the removal of a child issued in another state because the child's parent or guardian assisted the child in receiving gender-affirming care in that state, according to the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, if you're a mom or a dad, this is not a ticket that you can support in any way, shape, or form. And whether you are pro-choice or pro-life, there is a lot of agreement that there should be limitations at some point, at the very minimum, at some point in the second trimester. And here's a guy who doesn't support parents, doesn't support kids. This is sick. This is not science. It's highly offensive. And the fact that we have to go back and have these very basic conversations about things that we shouldn't be talking about, boys and girls sports, tampons in boys' restrooms. I mean, it's just so offensive to me as a woman. I can't believe that this is the ticket they're putting forward today. I think it's a huge advantage for Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to be able to go back to suburban women and say, this is why this ticket, why they don't support you. And I'm the first woman to graduate from the Citadel, the Military College of South Carolina. I am not going to allow progressives and the left and these woke people to take away every single achievement by women in this country, by real women. And you saw it in the Olympics over the last couple of weeks, 2 boys now competing for the top of the ticket in women's boxing. All of everything that we've achieved over the last 100 years during women's suffrage, post-women's suffrage, are going to be taken away by these progressive policies. And I'm not going to allow it to happen on my watch, in my district, my state, or my country. I'll be fighting alongside everybody else to make sure they know the truth and the facts about who Tim Waltz is, who Kamala Harris is, and what their agenda is really about for the American people.
Yeah, I mean, all of that, and yet they're calling you weird. Tim Waltz the other day said weird and creepy. I guess, let me bring the panel in here for a second, Congresswoman. I mean, I guess it's worth noting that Bernie Sanders is celebrating the pick. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is celebrating the pick. Yeah. Okay, so all the real lefties in Congress are all in on Tim Waltz, Emily.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing that. You're seeing the far left folks really double down on him. And I'd love to ask the Congresswoman a little bit about, your colleague, your oversight colleague, Cori Bush, just lost her primary. Do you think that the American people are going to reject this kind of progressive far left agenda?
Well, they already are. That's 2 squad members down in this primary cycle, in the 24 cycle of Democrat primaries. How many more to go? Ilhan Omar has her primary next week, and I hope that voters in Minnesota will take her out, that they'll elect someone who's maybe a more moderate or centrist person.
Yep.
These are not the values of America, and that's what's at stake here in November. It's all at stake.
Yep. Congressman, before you go, update us on Tropical Storm Debbie, how your state is dealing with this heavy flooding. And of course, it's quite dangerous out there. We understand it's going to be gone by Sunday. What are you seeing?
Well, our curfews are now being lifted today. There is a significant amount of dry air in the storm that is helping with reducing the flooding that's going on. I would caution people as they get back on the roads today and tomorrow to be cautious, to be wary, and to be safe, and don't go on flooded roads if you can help it.
All right, Congresswoman, good to see you. Thank you so much. Congresswoman Nancy Mace.
Thank you.
Joining us. We'll see you soon. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Stewart.